Hello, welcome to Instagram Live. It's been actually a while since I've done one of these. I think it's been like 6 weeks. We've been really, really busy at Atheneum Collective, creating lots of amazing courses. We launched a course on empathy, digital media buying. We just launched today a happiness course, which I'm super excited. I have Felicia Zigman, who is the teacher of that course, joining me today, and we are going to talk about how to cultivate happiness. Is something that is actually within your control, and given everything that's going on with the pandemic, I mean, what a great conversation to have. Hello, how are you?
I came in a second too early, but I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. I was just kind of doing a little preview of what we're going to talk about, which I'm so excited. I think the timing of this is so good. I cannot tell you how many things that I have read, whether it's research papers. I just listened to a podcast today from McKinsey on the Boss Project, which is all about well-being, happiness, and how now more than ever, people really need help with kind of like how to have, I guess, how to be happier. And I love when you think about your course, you've created it, Cultivating Happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that, why the word, let's start with why the word cultivating.
Yeah, I really like that you asked that. I've been doing a lot of research on happiness for a while, and it's something that we sort of expect to happen to you. And we're all waiting and waiting and waiting, and it doesn't come that easily. And where cultivating came from is you have to want it and work towards it. It's not something that's going to appear. It's like working out at the gym. You got to work for it and do very specific things. And you can cultivate it and build it in your life. I know a lot of people who are like, I still want to be happy. I have a husband. I have great kids. I want to be happy. You got to do the cultivation of it.
Right. And it's like anything in life, it takes work, right? Like being happy just isn't something that magically happens. And so many things around our circumstances can affect our happiness, right?
Yes. Yes. Everything that happens around us, it kind of like weights on our shoulder. It can bring us down, but we need to have the core of happiness or vitality to be able to manage it, to feel resilient to it. We all have bad days. We're never going to be happy every day. And I guess we have to define happiness, which is not a state of being elated all the time. We love that, but that's not realistic. It's a state of being okay and feeling strong and feeling vibrant and be able to deal with all of the stuff that brings us down.
And it's interesting because this idea right now, especially, we're kind of in this phase where people are getting vaccinated. We're starting to go out. Like I had a week where I had 3 lunches outside of my house. And I will tell you, I was the happiest that week than I have been in a long time. And I thought, wow, I actually feel differently.
Mhm.
I felt really happy because I'm a social person. I need connection. And this idea of staying in my house days on end is like, it's weird. Like you don't realize what makes you happy when you don't have it. And I was reading this New York Times article, like about, you're not necessarily depressed, right? But you're not your usual, I don't know the word, but they use the word
Law.
languishing.
You're just sort of like existing is what
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And I love that they use this idea that the word languishing. So the opposite of languishing is flourishing, and starting to notice that you're feeling this way, and it's okay,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it is. And everyone is there with you. It's okay. But like you said, noticing that you're in that place where you're just sort of existing and you're not flourishing.
So if you go out and you're talking to people and you're doing your research, I guess, what have you seen sort of are the biggest changes maybe over the last 18 months, and sort of any trends that you're seeing in terms of this overall idea of well-being and happiness?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually going to move back even before that. I have
Okay.
a degree in public health. I was doing wellness education for 20-ish years, and workplaces used to say, let's bring it in because it's a really nice to have. And I would do it, they would like it, the end of story. And now we are in COVID, hopefully soon post-COVID times. And I'm finding those same employers are coming back saying, we need you. This is no longer a nice to have. I think the companies are finding that people are actually leaving. I'm getting a lot of calls from organizations saying, I can't retain my employees. So I ask questions like, are you taking care of them? Are you asking them how they're doing? Are you providing resources to them? And they're like, yeah, no. So where my work comes in, and that's where cultivation comes in. If we could give employees the tools and the skills to cultivate happiness, again, a sense of strength and well-being, they will be more productive, they will be more engaged, their work will be exponentially better than it had been previously. So where it used to be 20 years ago and nice to have, all the way up till now, I think now we're in a time where it's like, okay, now we need to prioritize this way being, because we can't have people, if they're all complacent, if they're all in a place of what kind of productivity can we expect from them, and what kind of quality is there to their lives? So it just feels like we're in that, I feel like we're in a new shift area. And I actually, you mentioned going out to lunch and having a great time. Yeah. I'm an introvert, and I've also been in the house for a year. So I went out to lunch and to dinner, and I got anxiety.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I
opposite.
But I got little mini anxiety attacks. And I think there's a transition where I need to step up my practice of happiness and my resilience skills. Because if I don't, this transition to sort of normal but different is challenging for people.
Wow, that is really interesting. You're right. Everyone has sort of a different kind of point of view in terms of what are those things that are going to make you happy. But aren't there things that are sort of universal that, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, that you can do to actually cultivate more happiness?
I mean, absolutely. There are things, and you hear about it. You heard about it on Oprah. You hear about it on TV almost every day, but the power of gratitude. And I think people think of gratitude as saying, hey, Lisa, thank you. And gratitude is so much deeper than that. Expressing gratitude towards even someone you're resentful is powerful. It changes your brain chemistry. Being very specific in your gratitude, verbally expressing gratitude, and being grateful for yourself, being grateful for what you give, and practicing that in a very intentional way every day can give you a sense of a high or feeling good. Things like making your bed, which I admit I don't do as much as I probably should do, but when you do the small things where you feel like you accomplish something, it's huge. You could feel like, okay, today's okay. I did something productive. And so there's a lot of things every day, but it is about being intentional about it. And what you'll notice over time is, yes, you're going to have anxiety. Yes, you're going to have days where you're sad. Yes, you're going to have days where you feel overwhelmed. But hopefully those are less days than better days. And it just means you got to step up your practice of happiness. It's based in science. You're changing your neural pathways. And it's super, super powerful stuff that have really done a lot for my life and my coaching clients' lives as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because before the pandemic, started to do like a lot of journaling, a lot of gratitude, a lot of, things that I felt like do make me happy, like that help anyway. On that, I will have to say the one thing that really changed sort of my overall happiness was when I got my Peloton. I freaking love that. It's so awesome because it makes me happy. I get a good workout, and I do meditation, and I do everything that they have to offer. And it's funny because even though I know I should do it, there are still days where I'm like, I know it's going to make me happy, and I still don't feel like doing it.
It's that motivation piece. But no, the fact that you got it, you committed to it, you're doing it, and you get the payoff. That's one of many things that you can be doing. And I wish I was doing that too. I think I could use some Peloton these days.
It really does help. I have to say, anything that gets you were talking about in the course, the hormones, right? This idea that you are in control of the spikes that you can have in your hormones that are ultimately going to make you feel better. And I think obviously working out is one of them. Meditating is another one, which I find really helping. And not only that it helps with my anxiety stuff, but I have the best ideas when I meditate. Like I can go from a meditation to write a blog. Like it's just like,
yeah, it really just clears your mind. And I think being aligned to your values is a big one. And determining what is it that gives your life incredible meaning. And even if you have to stay in four walls every single day and you have children, I have a small child, if you have the condition where you can't, one of mine is freedom, and I don't have the freedom, but finding opportunities to live your true values. So it really is diving deep into who you are. But again, the results is you're a stronger person. Things will happen in your life. And rather than saying, okay, here's something else that's knocking me down, now you're like, I got this. I'm good with this. So it's again, the power of it. And I found happiness at a time when I really was tired all the time. I had a hard time with my child because he wants me to be very energetic and I didn't have it. And doctors were telling me that I'm over 40, so that's what happens. And to really find this cultivation of positive psychology and happy hormones and doing things like just walking around can give you freedom by yourself, and exercise and getting a Peloton, and what can you do to nurture yourself to make you stronger, so when things do come at you, because they will, and they will continue to, you have the strength to be able to tolerate it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's the personal side of happiness, but because I do a lot of my courses for people in the advertising marketing industry, it feels like there is, I just saw Adweek had done a whole study on motivation, and the people wanting to leave the workforce, like you were saying, the retaining, like I feel like that as a manager, as a leader, now more than ever, we have to start looking at people beyond the productivity of the business, but the productivity and the well-being. Are you seeing, that as well? It sounds like it because you're having companies call you.
It is crazy right now. About 10 years ago, I worked for SpaceX. So I worked for Elon Musk. And if I went to him and said, I'm going to teach happiness and I'm going to teach well-being, I would have gotten fired that very moment. But if I could link it to productivity, engagement, being their best, he was a little bit more tolerant of the things I was talking about. Today, I'm getting calls from frantic CEOs, HR executives saying, help, my people are leaving. And so my first question to them is, have you checked in with your team members to see if they're okay? I send an email once in a while. I'm like, no. Are you face-to-face seeing if they're okay? Are you listening to them? So it's transcending it's nice to have, like I said earlier, and it's going to the point where we're losing employees. Employees feel like they're alone on an island, that they don't have their social connection that maybe many of them want, that there are other jobs out there, they can start fresh. And oftentimes it's as simple as making a face-to-face phone call with someone and saying, hey, are you okay? And you don't have to provide happiness tools, but just say to them, I care about you. And that human connection is a huge element of making someone feel connected to the workplace and connected to society. And yet they're not doing it, so they're calling me. I mean, I love getting the work, but something so very simple that people can do it. And I'm noticing that it is becoming a hot topic, even in recruiting. And how are we going to recruit people who are motivated and stay? And we can't ignore the elephant in the room that we've all been home scared of a virus for a year, and that the work world is different and we're remote, that we have to talk about it, and we have to talk about those feelings. A lot of my engineering clients have a harder time talking about their feelings, but I'm noticing a huge transition even in the more technical areas where you cannot ignore the human element anymore.
And it's sad that it took a pandemic and people being stuck at home to get to that point, because when I think through my career, the leaders who cared about me as a human being were the best experiences I had, in my role. And I think that the idea that we're at a point now where, people are starting to realize that, but your most valuable asset at any company are your employees. Like, it's why not invest in them, and especially in their well-being. So it's interesting that I just had this conversation with, right before this, a friend of mine is a leader at an agency, and we were talking about the idea that, especially as a manager, reaching out, talking to people, finding out what's going on in their lives, caring about them at the human level. And like you and I, we have, you have your son at home, I have a family. There are people, young people, who are home alone. They don't have, I couldn't even imagine that. Would be so hard.
They're single people, they're alone, which sometimes sounds kind of quiet and peaceful when you have a 5-year-old, but they're isolated from everyone. And do you know there are a lot of companies who don't even do video calls? They don't even do face to face. So these people are literally isolated. And when I talk to leaders and I say check in on them, provide resources if you can, even send them to HR, they look at me and say, I don't want to be their friend, I'm their leader. And the message isn't that you don't provide difficult feedback, because that is critical. But you got to get the trust and respect of that leader. You got to build the relationship. Then they'll listen to your tough feedback. It's an interesting snowball effect that once you have that relationship, management becomes easier. That your people produce 100% of their ability instead of 60% of their ability. That they would not leave the company if they were offered 3 times as much, because they're, the best leader I ever had. He was tough. He wasn't easy, but we go play racquetball. If you're out there, you know who you are. We play racquetball and we'd have a great time, and he would check on me and he would be there for me personally. It didn't mean he didn't show up for me on a professional basis. He was, and pushed me, but I trusted him and respected him so much that I would do anything he asked and I would listen to what he said. So
yeah,
powerful.
I've been fortunate to have the same experience where when, tough things happened, I'm still a person. Like I still need the help through that. But at the same time, we had that working relationship where I knew I would be pushed, where I knew I would grow. But, I look back over my career, and the fondest memories I have and the people I just respect the most were those that knew how to balance the human side and the work side, like both of those things. And I always say there's no such thing as work-life balance anymore, because when you're home, you're home. Like it's all meshed together. And in a way it's kind of cool, because you can, I know so many people who have learned to take their one-on-ones while they're walking the dog, that you can be on a meeting and folding your laundry, that you could cook dinner and still be on a call. Like there's so many things you can do at the same time that you kind of
shirt on top and sweatpants below, and that works too.
Yes, what I'm doing exactly right now.
It's very interesting. I did wear shoes for you today though, but no,
wow, I'm still barefoot.
and actually one of my clients enough said, we're not doing video chats because there's top secret stuff going on and we don't want to see people's homes. And I'm thinking there's nothing top secret enough where you could maybe then shade it out a little bit.
Or do a virtual background.
There's beautiful virtual backgrounds. So there's this, but the ROI on it is so incredible. And again, it goes beyond the touchy-feely. And I think in the workshop that we did together, I think we really went beyond, you'll feel good, you'll be happy. We really looked at ROI. We really looked at what can you do to bring that strength and resilience. I know in the workshop, I brought up a story about an employee that I had that we did not get along.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Challenge to give positive feedback and recognition, and the amazing things it did for our relationship. I think a lot of times at work, we avoid those people we don't like or get along with. And I'm not saying be a therapist and psychoanalyze them, but if you could transition that and focus on the positives that they bring, it actually changes the way you communicate with them. It really breaks the ice. So there's such a direct business impact on all of these things that someone may see the word happiness or cultivate happiness and think, oh my gosh, here we go again. It's hardcore impact. Again, I'm mostly a leadership coach. It is such an amazing tool, everywhere from CEO all the way down to frontline employees, to really help you be the best you can be, to sound a little bit Tony Robbins.
No, it's true though. I mean, and I think, we started this off talking about this idea that there's work involved. Like you have to do things in order to be happier. And what I love is that you broke it down into the happiness 7, the 7 principles around that. And every single one of them has activities and ways to actually do things to learn what does that make you happier, ways to become happier. And I think a lot of times, like you were saying, that sort of woo-woo thing, once you take the principles around it, right, and you make it actionable, it automatically becomes more productive, right?
How could it not?
Yeah.
You're taking these elements that are not that big or difficult in your life, and you're taking 5 minutes here and there. I do say the 7 are great. You got to find what resonates with you. There are ones that I do every day, and there are ones that I know I should do. and I don't do as much as I could, but you got to find what works for you. And I really like seeing for every personality type and every person, there is something you can do every day. You could go take a walk around the block to get exercise, and you could spend some time thinking about how you could feed your values. That's a really easy thing. You can accomplish things. You become more organized. Whatever you decide will have the most impact you can. And there's a lot of great literature out there. People could find it. But I think having sort of a recipe of the seven for me, because I am, again, a single mom. I have my own business. In fact, I have my own two businesses. And I have a preschool in my backyard. I am a really big person. And the fact that I could wake up every day with energy, I attribute to being super intentional with practicing what feels good to me. Now, I challenge myself every day, and I'm sure you do too, to increase that as well. But the difference in how you manage the stress is incredible, particularly in the workspace where you're dealing with a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think also it really becomes the onus is on us as individuals, but I do think as a manager, especially, taking the time to understand the principles of happiness, you could become a better manager and help your employees. It's one thing to care, it's one thing to say thank you, but to start really thinking about what maybe the empathy part of it, right? What are people going through and how can you support them? Because ultimately, the more you give, right, the more you're going to get in terms of the work, the end result of work, right? People are going to do more if they trust you. And there are some people who absolutely love that part of it. And there are other people who, you know, you kind of have to maybe push or help to see the value in this. But it goes back to this idea that most people don't leave companies. They leave their bosses.
They leave their bosses. And, you know, if you could really picture all of your employees being super vibrant, attentive, passionate about their work every day, what kind of productivity can you expect from them? Can you imagine having an organization like that? Which is why, you know, it goes, you said it earlier, it goes beyond the individual and it goes to the organization. How can we create organizations that are not just engaged? Engagement has been a measure for a long time in HR. I know passion has also been engaged. I think happiness encompasses both of them and says, what if you have truly focused, attentive, and vibrant employees walking around? They will never leave. They will do the best job. They will be crazy creative.
I was thinking creative too. Yeah.
The creativity, when you don't have all this pressure and stress and you feel like you could breathe, they're going to be brainstorming and thinking of all these creative solutions. Their confidence level will go up. And, you know, a lot of people want that quick fix of, oh, I'll give them a bonus. People don't leave because of salary. They don't wait for bonuses. If the bonuses are nice, we like money. But if the bonuses are attached to this is why, and we value you, and we value you as a human being and what you're bringing, oh my gosh, the productivity exponentially gets better. And on the other side, if we're choosing to ignore it, and there are employees who don't want to be happy, they don't want to get to that place, they find a crutch in that, and we really probably can't help them. But most people want to feel good every day. Most people want to feel like they're contributing. And I think that's where the happiness 7, that's where the intentional practice of happiness can pay off huge. And then I have a lot of people, especially moms, who say to me, I don't have time for this. And I'm thinking, what if you felt like you had your gas tank at full every single day? Of course, by the end of the day, it's depleted, but you woke up without full tank. Then your kid had a temper tantrum and they were fighting and this was happening. And then you have to go to work. You have the strength to manage it. Again, super powerful stuff.
And I think what's interesting is you do break it down into very simple things you can do. Like it doesn't have to take a lot of time because so much of it also is our mindset, like our willingness to, whether it's quiet our mind or think differently, or, I mean, all of those kind of things, you know, really does. I mean, it's all doable stuff. You just have to be motivated, want to do that. And then on the days then you do those things and you can totally see the difference, that just kind of reinforces wanting to do it.
So other than, I'm gonna turn it on you. So other than exercise, have you been doing things intentionally since we've been working together?
I do actually. So I every day I do my affirmation for the day. I have a an affirmation, like an app, and it will give me one. And I don't know, there's something about it. Like they're just very simple things that I don't know. I feel like it starts my day, and I always do a quote of the day. Like there's something about those two things. They just set me up, for just, I don't know, just feeling better. I don't know what it is about it, but I try and journal every day.
Good.
I just, even if it's just a few things, like what did I learn today that can maybe make tomorrow better? I listen to a lot of podcasts. I walk my dog. He loves it, for like an hour every day. And I listen to something. I always do Zoom calls. Like I need to have face to face. Like I need to connect with people. I do a lunch club every single week with somebody I don't know. And I do a growth club. So people who are starting businesses, I do that with them every week. So I meet 2 new people every week for sure. And I've been doing that for almost a year.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'm really good about things like that. But when I get demotivated and I feel this, I've had this idea of sort of languishing, I will binge watch really bad television. It's terrible.
Are you kidding me? Binge watching TV is one of my happiness. It's not part of the pillars, but I hear you there.
I feel guilty. I don't know why I feel really guilty about it for some weird reason. Like I'll get into these really inane TV shows and just like, watch them. But the problem is I'll watch them at lunchtime and then I'll be like, oh, I just have to see one more episode.
It's really hard to stop when you're binging. We'll have to talk about the shows after.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, it's embarrassing. I wouldn't even say them out loud.
But I said at the beginning is the affirmations. And I don't know if we talk about it that much, but when I went to the World Happiness Conference, we're back like 3 years pre-COVID, I went with some friends. And what they said is when you wake up, most of us think negative, like, oh, I have a lot going on today. I'm home another day. I have this. And that actually affects the trajectory of your day. So what my friends and I did was at the conference, it lasted a good 6 months. I have to say it's died down a little bit. We would send each other positive affirmations in the morning. And it was more like just seeing things from a positive angle as if it were happening, not going to happen. Like today's a great day. The birds were tweeting and I get to go to my favorite place for lunch, and we'd send it to each other. And something happens when you read that and you go from being in a place of dread to a place of optimism, that even reading someone else do it, and we all participated in that, it really changes the outlook of your day. And I think especially now, and the transition back to normality is hard for people too. I'm still dealing with, don't have to wear masks outside right now.
I found that out. I'm so excited.
You're excited. I'm a little nervous. So, there's transitions going all different directions. So if you don't focus on sort of the positivity there, you will go down this sink of negativity and dread. And all it is changing that from the negative, which I need to do with my mask issues, I guess, to the more positive. Today's a great day. I got this. I'm going to do some really fun things. I'm going to make a difference. And you'll notice over a period of time, it just becomes so natural.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you have to break the cycle too of, you get in the habit of having a thought. Like I would wake up every day and I would think, I have so much to do.
Yes.
And the truth is everything I have to do is completely manageable. I have all day to get it done and I can do it whenever I want. Like, it's not like it has to be done at a certain time. Like,
right.
And so I started to have to like wake up and say, I get to do a lot of cool stuff today. Like a totally different, not like it. And it just, those little things make such a huge, huge difference. And they're not that hard to do.
Yeah. Like want to jump out of bed and get started versus here I am, I got to do this. So, even if it's inauthentic at first, because I know people say to me, that's so fake. Yes, it may be completely fake, especially if that's not your norm. Fake it until you make it. The more you do it, the more you convince yourself. Your thoughts are incredibly powerful. So if you could say, instead of, oh, I have this much work, oh, I'm so excited I have work, it's going to feel really ridiculous for a few days. And you're going to feel really inauthentic. What's going to happen is you're like, yeah, actually, I like starting work. I like getting to work. This is okay. And then it's going to be one of those things where you're going to like working without saying that anymore. So just keep practicing that positivity, and it will change your thinking around it. Even if someone's sick, I think a lot of times our place to go is dread and the worst case scenario. And that's sort of innately in me. I go negative. And just to reframe that thought to being positive, it's work. It feels really weird. It feels fake, but it will change the outlook of your day and hopefully change how your brain's working over time.
And I do believe that we can change. I mean, the one thing we can change is our minds.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally within our control. I mean, it takes work, but I'm a huge believer in the idea that, you know, what I think is what creates my feelings. I can choose what I think. Like, I don't have to think necessarily something negative. I can choose to think lots of positive things.
Right.
And that's something I've actually been working on for several years, is this idea of sort of what happened, why do I think it, what does it make me feel, and therefore what does it do? So trying to figure out that cycle and where I can break that cycle, if whether I'm doing things that don't help me or I'm thinking things that don't help me, somewhere in that cycle there's something I can change.
So have you noticed over time now it just naturally comes to you in sort of a more positive light?
You know what? It requires work. Like, if I don't do it and I don't journal, I just let it, I can feel it and I can hear it in my brain when I'm sleeping or when I'm relaxing. Like, I can hear all those things, the chattering. But if I can write it all down and get it out, I can start to recognize where it is. But it's work. Like, it doesn't just, it takes time, and you have to almost do it every day or every few days so that you can get that stuff and you can start recognizing, why am I thinking this? What's really going on?
Really?
And that gives you more control over what you do with it.
Yeah, it has to be done regularly. You're every 6 months going, God, why am I so negative? Or why am I thinking that way? It won't work. It is that, even if it's every few days, like, gosh, why am I thinking that? What evidence is there to prove that? Can I shift the way that I'm thinking here? Makes it really works. It's just
It does.
committing to it. And I think you and I have both seen that. And I remember about 10 years ago, I went to some singles event, which I don't like to admit. And some guys, I thought I was being really funny. Like, you're just so negative. And I'm thinking, actually, probably was a lot more negative. I was making fun of everyone's clothes, I guess. I thought I was having fun. But he's like, I wanted to go out with you. You're just negative for me. And then I thought about it, like, maybe perhaps because we do it in humor, we do it, but it is that retraining where we don't want people to walk around inauthentically and be like, hi, today's beautiful and the sun is out. But finding that, you know what, it's not so bad and things are good and people are generally good. Makes you go through life and the path. It's just so much more pleasant than holding on to anger and resentment and negativity. And I think that's where I really noticed I needed to change. But it didn't take a lot. It took just being very intentional with it, as you said.
Yeah, and I love how you break down in the course, like you were saying, that you don't have to do everything. You have to find the things that work for you. It could be 3 things that you do once a week, or you do one small thing every day and you do a bigger thing, once a week or whatever. Like, there's so many tools. There's so many ways to cultivate happiness. And I think a lot of times people, A, don't know what they are. B, they don't, everyone, the 2 things that people have the least of is time and attention. And I think the way we've created the course, it doesn't take that much time, is done in a way that will easily hold your attention, but there are so many amazing things to help people really kind of figure out what can they do to get to that level of happiness.
Yeah, I agree. And the resource guide for me has been a game changer. The fact that I could keep a journal that reminds me of everything that we talk about and practice it really is a huge thing, because it's great to hear it. I just don't want people to hear it and say, that sounds good in theory, but I'm going to go on business as usual. But the fact that it's there and you could keep it visible, and, I've printed it out and write on it is just so incredibly helpful. So I love how that was organized.
Yeah. And every course comes with amazing resource guides for that exact reason, because I could listen to you say something, and in the moment, maybe I write it down, but then I can't read my writing. But having the resource guide, I'm like, oh yeah, this brings it to life. And then the activities and the things that you can do, in happiness we do that, but in all the courses that I have, there are actual, if you want to learn a skill, right? You've got to practice it. You've got to do the work to remember that. So it's super cool.
And it's a commitment when you write something down. Commitment. It almost takes like the whole coaching philosophy and making it self-serve and having them write it down. And there's some level of accountability when you're writing down, unless you throw it under a pile somewhere. But if you're keeping it there, it really helps keep you on track. And people need that visual daily to really keep on track. So I appreciate that part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I have a question for you. When you journal or write things down, do you ever go and look back at what you wrote?
Yes, I do. Oftentimes when I talk about something called morning pages, which is the brain dump, I always say you don't have to. It's just getting it out, makes you sleep better, make you feel better. I read it. I like to see where I was when I wrote it. I like to look for things maybe that are important that I don't think of in my conscious mind, and it keeps me accountable. So for me, I need that. I will keep things on my desk, or I'll put Post-it notes up with things I read in there, and I do review it. So it really depends on the context. Some things you don't need to, but I think that reminder and that rereading it really helps a lot, particularly when we're talking about happiness and cultivating happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, I have them all over the place. I've got my daily positive 10 things to do today. I've got my affirmations, but I have a whole bunch of journals, and I was cleaning out and I was thinking, first of all, do I throw them away, right? Or do I save them? And then am I like, will I ever go back and look at them? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it's one of the things you don't want to be a hoarder with journals.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's interesting, especially if you're on this journey, to see where you were and then where you are. And it's sometimes I'll look back, or my clients will look back and they'll say, I was so insecure about the skills I'm bringing to this job, or I was so insecure about this whole thing. And to see where I am today, there's new issues I'm dealing with, but they're incredibly different. So I think there's value in seeing your progression. And as a coach, I help people with that. But just watching your journals, you can see that themselves. So there's value. If it dates back to 10 years or so, it could just be fun to have. But I think it's a really good practice to read it and then really feel what you were feeling and seeing how you come with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I have one of those, the 5-year, every day you write something.
Yeah.
I'm on my second 5 year. So I've got now, this is the 6th year. And it's fun to go back on that actual day, right? I can look over the last 6 years, what happened on that day. And I love looking at that.
Yeah, my sister
really fun
on right now. I think she does it or did that, where she was writing down everything she did back to like 1995. Like I went to the Depeche Mode concert. I went to the doctors. So it's nice to kind of see your history. There's a point where you become a little bit of a hoarder and a pack rat, but I think having that documentation of where you are makes you see where you've been, and you could enjoy that moment looking back.
Yeah, I've got to balance the hoarding, but not hoarding, but like the pack racking and like,
Yeah.
Do I really need, I have like a whole shelf of all these like journals. I'm like, oh my God.
It's entertaining. For now, it doesn't look cluttered behind you, so we're good.
Yeah, and not only that, is you never know. My son Nick might want to read about him sometime.
See, it's like a historical perspective.
Yeah. I found a diary from my grandmother, like out of the blue. And I was like, wow, where did this come from? And she must have given it to me at some point. So that's kind of cool too, like something to think about.
Legacy.
Yeah, exactly. The legacy. So we're over a little bit. This was great. I always love talking to you. It's awesome. I'm so excited for people to discover the course, to cultivate their own happiness. How can people find out more about you and follow you?
Great. Thank you for asking. You could find me at fzcoaching.com. So
F as in Z as in zebra.
And yeah, F okay. Felicia, Z, Zigman or zebra, coaching, one word, at gmail.com is where you reach me. You can look at my website, fzcoaching.com. And I'm here, and I am here to help, and I'm here to share what I learn. And I'm still always learning, so I love to pass that along.
And for those people who are interested, the course is on atheneumcollective.com. We'll have that in the notes with the show. And I'm going to put some of the, I'm going to link to the New York Times article on languishing, because I think it's really interesting, and some really interesting research as well that I found that is all about this need for a focus on well-being, especially in the workplace.
So important, beyond just a nice to have.
Exactly. It's a need to have.
Need to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we just made it so much easier for people to give their teams that. All they have to do is come and take your course. It's awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you.
This was fun.
my first Instagram live. So thank you.
Yay! It's actually so easy. I don't know why I don't do it more often, but sometimes I don't know. I guess you have to put yourself out there.
It was fun. And I did not drink my iced tea for a good half hour. So that was a record for me. It should get in my veins. It makes me happy. My green iced tea.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. Well, it's good to see you. Have a good rest of the week.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.